They tell you retirement is supposed to be golden years. Nobody warns you that loneliness can make you stupid at any age. I learned that lesson at 72, and it cost me everything I spent 5 decades saving. Some mistakes you make when you're young and broke. Others you make when you're old and desperate. The second kind hurts worse because you should know better. If our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and tell us where you're watching from. This story was shared with us by one of our long-time viewers, and he wanted his experience heard. I never thought I'd be one of those old men sitting alone in a house that echoes with memories. Martha and I had it all planned out. We'd travel, visit the grandkids, maybe get that RV we always talked about. 47 years of marriage, and we figured we had at least 20 more together. Cancer had other plans. 3 months after her funeral, I was sitting in her chair for the first time, staring at walls covered with photos of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. The house we bought in 1978 suddenly felt enormous and suffocating at the same time. "You need to get out more, Hal," my neighbor Jim kept saying. "Martha wouldn't want you rotting away in there." Easy for him to say. His wife was still alive, still making him coffee every morning, still complaining about his golf habit. I'd give anything to hear Martha complain about something again. Instead, I had silence. Complete, crushing silence that made me understand why solitary confinement is considered torture. I started talking to her empty chair just to hear a human voice, even if it was my own. "Maybe you should try one of those dating websites," Jim suggested one afternoon while helping me fix a broken gutter. "Lots of nice widows out there looking for companionship." I laughed at him. Me, Harold Morrison, 72-year-old retired machinist, with arthritis in both knees and reading glasses thicker than Coke bottles. The idea seemed ridiculous. But that night, after another dinner alone and 3 hours of mind-numbing television, I found myself staring at my laptop screen, wondering if there really was anyone left in the world who might want to share coffee with a broken-down old man. I created my first dating profile in 50 years, and I felt like a teenager trying to impress a girl at a school dance. I lied about my age by 3 years, used a photo from Martha's birthday party 2 years ago when I looked less defeated by life, and tried to make 40 years of factory work sound interesting. Retired machinist enjoys quiet evenings, classic movies, and meaningful conversation. It sounded pathetic even to me, but I clicked submit before I lost my nerve. Within an hour, I had 3 messages. 2 were obvious scams from women half my age with perfect bodies and broken English. The third was from Christine Santos in Dumaguete, Philippines. "Hi, Harold. I read your profile and you seem like such a kind, genuine person. I'm 26 and studying nursing here in the Philippines. I know the age difference might seem strange, but I've always connected better with mature men who have wisdom and life experience. Would you like to chat sometime?" Her profile picture showed a beautiful young woman with kind eyes and a warm smile that reminded me of Martha when we first met. Against every rational thought in my head, I wrote back. Our first video chat lasted 3 hours. I couldn't believe someone so young and beautiful wanted to hear my stories about life in Ohio, about working in factories, about what it was like being married for nearly 5 decades. Christine listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions about my past, my dreams, my fears about growing old alone. She told me about her nursing studies, her dream of helping sick children, her struggles with tuition money. When she called me Kuya Hal, Big Brother in Tagalog, something in my chest loosened for the first time since Martha died. "You have such a kind heart, Kuya Hal," she said, her accent making even simple words sound musical. "I can tell you, we're a wonderful husband. Your Martha was very lucky." The way she said Martha's name with respect and genuine sympathy made me want to cry. No one had talked to me about Martha like that, like she was a real person instead of just a tragedy, to be avoided in conversation. For the first time in months, I felt like I had a reason to wake up in the morning. Within 2 weeks, we were talking every day. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to catch her evening calls, planning my entire day around our conversations. She sent me photos of her life in Dumaguete, the university where she studied, her small but tidy apartment, an elderly woman she claimed was her grandmother who needed constant care. I found myself researching Filipino culture, ordering snacks online to ship to her, learning basic Tagalog phrases that made her laugh when I pronounced them wrong. "You're so sweet to think of me," she'd say when packages arrived. "No one has ever been so kind to me." When her phone broke during a rainstorm, I didn't hesitate to send money for a replacement. When she mentioned struggling with expensive textbooks, I found online versions and paid for digital copies. Each small gift felt like an investment in something I couldn't quite name but desperately needed. Hope, connection, purpose. For the first time since retirement, I felt useful again. The first real money request came after 6 weeks of daily conversations. I was eating breakfast alone, as usual, when Christine called earlier than normal, her face streaked with tears. "Kuya Hal, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I don't know what to do." Her grandmother had collapsed and needed expensive heart medication that insurance wouldn't cover. She showed me photos of an elderly woman in a hospital bed, connected to machines that beeped ominously in the background. "I can't let her die, Kuya Hal. She's all the family I have left. But the medicine costs 40,000 pesos and I don't have that kind of money." She broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Something paternal and protective awakened in me. Here was this beautiful, kind young woman who had brought light back into my grey world, and she was suffering while I sat on a bank account I barely touched. "How much is that in dollars?" I asked. When she told me it was about $800, I didn't hesitate. "I'll send it today." She tried to refuse, saying she couldn't accept such generosity from someone she'd never met in person, but I insisted. What good was money sitting in a bank when it could save a life? When she sent photos of her grandmother taking the medication, looking healthier and more alert, I felt more useful than I had since Martha's diagnosis. That first transfer opened floodgates I didn't know existed. Christine's tuition payment came. Due, $1,200. Her rent was late, $400. Emergency dental work, $600. Each crisis felt genuine and urgent, accompanied by tears and heartfelt gratitude. I found myself rationalizing every transfer. I had $127,000 in retirement savings, built up over decades of 60-hour work weeks and careful budgeting. Martha's life insurance had added another $85,000. What was the point of all that money if I was going to die alone and miserable? "You're my angel, Kuya Hal," Christine would say after each transfer. "I don't know what I did to deserve someone so wonderful in my life. I can't wait to meet you in person and show you how grateful I am." She started talking about our future together, how she'd cook traditional Filipino dishes for me, how we'd sit on the beach together watching sunsets. I began researching flights to the Philippines, imagining myself walking on tropical beaches with this woman who had saved me from the crushing loneliness that threatened to swallow me whole. 4 months into our relationship, I surprised Christine by announcing I'd booked a flight to the Philippines for the following month. Her reaction caught me off guard. Instead of joy, she seemed panicked, making excuses about why the timing wasn't good. Her grandmother was having bad days. She had final exams. Her apartment wasn't suitable for a guest. I felt confused and slightly hurt, but pushed back gently. "I don't need fancy accommodations, Chris. I just want to finally hold your hand, to see your beautiful face in person instead of through a screen." Eventually she warmed to the idea, but I noticed a subtle shift in her demeanor. Our conversations became slightly stilted, like she was reading from a script. She seemed distracted, constantly checking something off camera. Still, I pushed down my doubts and focused on the excitement of finally escaping my lonely house for an adventure that might change everything. The flight to the Philippines felt like the longest 20 hours of my life. I'd packed 2 suitcases with gifts, clothes, jewelry, electronics, medicine for her grandmother. My heart raced as the plane descended into Dumaguete, and I caught my first glimpse of the tropical paradise where my new life might begin. Christine met me at the airport, looking even more beautiful in person, wearing a yellow sundress that made her skin glow. But something felt off from the moment we embraced. She seemed nervous, constantly checking her phone, rushing me through the airport like we were being followed. "Where are we going?" I asked as we climbed into a taxi. "I can't wait to see your place, meet your grandmother." But instead of heading to her apartment as planned, she directed the driver to a small hotel near the city center. "Lola is having a bad day," she explained, using the Tagalog word for grandmother I'd learned during our chats. "The doctors say visitors might upset her. You understand, right, Kuya Hal? We'll have plenty of time together." I tried to hide my disappointment but agreed, thinking we'd have 2 weeks to spend every moment together. That evening, she took me to an expensive restaurant overlooking the ocean. The view was breathtaking, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Christine ordered the most expensive items on the menu without asking what I preferred, then sat back expectantly when the bill arrived. I realized she assumed I'd pay for everything, which I did, but the presumption stung. Over the next few days, I began seeing a different side of the woman I thought I knew. She was constantly asking for money. Her phone bill was overdue. Her grandmother needed new medication. A school project required expensive supplies. When I suggested we spend a quiet day together just talking, getting to know each other without distractions, she became agitated. "We can't just sit around, Kuya Hal. I need new clothes for our special time together. You want me to look nice for you, don't you?" At the mall, she led me from store to store, picking out expensive dresses, jewelry, electronics, cosmetics. I found myself paying for everything while feeling increasingly uncomfortable. The humble, grateful woman I'd fallen for over video chat seemed to have been replaced by someone materialistic and demanding. "Why don't we stay in tonight and cook together?" I suggested on our 4th day. "I'd love to learn how to make those Filipino dishes you told me about." Her face darkened immediately. "Are you serious? You fly all the way here and want to cook at home like some cheap local boyfriend? I thought you were different from other Ray." "Foreign men." She stormed out of the hotel, leaving me alone and confused, wondering what I'd done wrong. On my 6th day in the Philippines, everything changed. Christine received what she claimed was a frantic call about her grandmother being rushed to the hospital. She broke down completely, begging me to help save the only family she had left. "The doctors say she needs emergency surgery, but insurance won't cover it. They want 150,000 pesos before they'll operate. That's almost $3,000, Kuya Hal. I don't know what to do." Despite my growing unease about her constant financial needs, I couldn't stand to see her in such pain. "I'll wire the money right now," I said, pulling out my laptop to access my bank account. But when I suggested coming to the hospital to support her through this difficult time, she became evasive, claiming COVID restrictions prevented visitors. I knew those restrictions had ended months ago, but I didn't want to argue while she was grieving. She disappeared for the entire day, leaving me alone in my hotel room with nothing but my doubts for company. Something about her story didn't add up. Why wouldn't she want my emotional support during such a crisis? Why did every conversation eventually turn to money? Why had I never actually met this grandmother who played such a central role in our relationship? That night, staring at the ceiling while tropical rain drummed against my window, I made a decision that would change everything. Unable to shake my suspicions, I took a taxi to the address Christine had given me for her apartment. What I found made my blood run cold. Instead of a residential building, I was staring at a bustling internet cafe in a commercial district. Young women sat at computers, talking animatedly into webcams, their conversations overlapping in a mixture of English and Tagalog. The owner, a middle-aged man with limited English, was surprisingly forthcoming when I asked about Christine. "Ah, you mean Chris? Yes, she rent computer here many hours every day. Very popular with foreign men. She good girl, work hard for her family." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Christine's apartment was likely just this rented space. Her entire life story might be fabricated. The grandmother I'd been sending medicine money to probably didn't exist. That evening, when Christine returned with updates about her grandmother's successful surgery, I confronted her with what I'd discovered. "I went to your apartment address today, Chris. It's an internet cafe." Her face went through a series of expressions: surprise, fear, anger, and finally defiance. The tears came, but they seemed different this time, angry and defensive rather than sad and grateful. "Okay, fine," she finally exploded. "You want the truth?" "Yes, I lied about some things. No, I don't have a grandmother." The nursing school thing was partially true. I did go for one semester before I had to drop out because my family couldn't afford it. The money you sent didn't go to medical bills. It went to my real family in Mindanao to help pay for my younger brother's education, to keep food on our table. She stood up, pacing around my hotel room like a caged animal. You think this is easy for me? You think I enjoy pretending to love old foreign men? But what choice do I have? My father died when I was 15. My mother works in a factory for 200 pesos a day. My brother is smart, really smart, but without money for school he'll end up in the same factory. So yes, I play games with lonely foreign men who come here expecting to buy young Filipino women anyway. At least I'm honest about what this really is. Her words hit me like physical blows. Everything I thought I knew about our relationship crumbled in real time. The loneliness I thought I'd escaped suddenly felt worse than before, compounded by humiliation and the devastating realization that I was nothing more than an ATM to someone I thought cared about me. Did any of it mean anything to you? I asked quietly. Any of our conversations, any of the things you said? Some of it, she admitted, her voice softer now. You're a kind man, Kuya Hal. Kinder than most. But kindness doesn't pay for rice, or school uniforms or medicine when people actually get sick. I'm sorry you got hurt, but I'm not sorry for taking care of my family the only way I know how. Back in my hotel room that night, I took inventory of the damage. Over 6 months, I'd sent Christine nearly $15,000, money that came from my retirement, savings, my emergency fund, and some of Martha's life insurance policy. My comfortable nest egg, carefully built over decades of careful saving, was dangerously depleted. I'd need to sell Martha's house sooner than planned. At 72, I might have to find work again just to survive my remaining years. My phone buzzed, constantly with messages from Christine, alternating between apologies and justifications. Please understand I never meant to hurt you. My feelings for you were real, even if my situation wasn't. You gave me hope that there are still good men in the world. Please don't hate me. I turned off the phone and stared out at the tropical paradise that had become my personal hell. I changed my return flight and left the Philippines 3 days early, unable to bear another conversation with Christine or another moment in a place that now represented the most expensive mistake of my life. The long flight home gave me hours to reflect on how a lifetime of careful financial planning had been undone by 6 months of loneliness and desperation for human connection. I thought about Martha and what she would say about my foolishness. Would she be angry, heartbroken, or just sad that I'd been so desperate to replace her that I'd fallen for an obvious scam? As the plane descended into Cleveland, I saw my familiar city below and realized that running away to the Philippines hadn't solved my loneliness. It had just made it more expensive and infinitely more painful. The house I'd left behind would still be empty when I returned, still echo with memories of a marriage that felt increasingly distant. But now it would also serve as a reminder of my own gullibility, my pathetic attempt to purchase companionship from a woman young enough to be my granddaughter. Back in Cleveland, I did something I hadn't done since Martha died. I sat in her chair. The leather was cracked from years of her evening reading sessions, and it still smelled faintly of her lavender lotion. For the first time, the silence didn't feel oppressive. It felt honest. I'd lost most of my retirement savings, but I'd gained something harder to quantify, the knowledge that grief can't be cured with money or solved by strangers from halfway around the world. Loneliness at 72 isn't something to be escaped from desperately. It's something to be faced with, whatever dignity you have left. I started attending a local senior center, not looking for romance, but simply for human conversation with people who understood what it meant to lose everything familiar and start over. We played cards, shared stories, complained about our kids who called too rarely and our bodies that betrayed us daily. Sometimes the other widows and widowers asked about my trip overseas. Educational, I'd tell them, and leave it at that. I never mentioned Christine by name, but I always found ways to warn them about the dangers of online relationships, about how loneliness can make even the smartest person incredibly stupid, regardless of age. The heart wants what it wants, but the brain is supposed to protect us from wanting things that will destroy us. At 72, I finally learned that lesson, and it only cost me everything I'd saved for my golden years. Some education comes cheap. The important kind never does.